Vehicles come in many different shapes and sizes, but some of those shapes and sizes are more memorable than others. We have a whole range of strange and unique vehicles to show you in this video, and they look nothing like the kind of cars, trucks, or bikes you might see parked on a highway in your neighborhood. Some were custom-made for affluent customers with particular tastes, and others were bold visions of the future. Taken all together, they're a collection of some of the most incredible vehicles that have ever existed. Honda is a company that has a long history of creating innovative vehicles, from regular household cars to Formula One racing vehicles. We don't think they've ever come up with anything quite so unique as their Fuyu Joe concept car, though. This is the vehicle they described as a party on wheels. The name of the car translates to English as Sleepless City, which gives a tiny clue as to its purpose. Honda intended this to be a 24-hour party wagon that could transport revelers safely from one party to the next. Inside the tall car is a dance floor that has been reinforced to allow for energetic dancing while the vehicle is in motion. Unsurprisingly, it also came complete with a state-of-the-art, ultra-powerful sound system to make sure that the party atmosphere wasn't lost between destinations. Sadly, it never made it beyond the concept car stage, but the Fuyu Joe was a heavy influence on later similar vehicles that came from Scion and Toyota. According to the people who designed it, the Simca Fullcar is what all road cars would look like by the year 2000. You probably recall that cars didn't look like this at the turn of the century, and they still don't look much like this now. We can't blame Simca for trying, though. The Fullcar is a concept car that they made way back in 1958. Robert Opron was the man who designed the car, which he proudly displayed at Geneva's Auto Show in 1959, and again at an auto show in Chicago in 1961. Opron even tried to predict the kind of onboard technology that the cars of the future might feature. The Fullcar was theoretically designed to be powered by atomic energy and controlled by the human voice with a radar guidance system for accuracy. Only 2 wheels would be required to keep the vehicle stable, and at top speed it would approach 100 miles per hour. He may not have gotten many of his predictions right, but voice control and radar guidance aren't a million miles away from the self-driving cars we expect to see hit the roads over the next few years. Military technology often sees rapid advances during times of war, and that was certainly the case during the Second World War. The German side of the conflict wanted to create a safe way to cross minefields without putting troops at risk. So they developed a new type of armored vehicle, capable of sustaining a direct hit from a landmine without endangering its crew. That vehicle was the Krupp Rumer S, an unusual creation that looked a little like an armor-plated penny-farthing bicycle. Krupp was given orders from the government to create a heavy-duty vehicle that was self-propelled, ran on rollers, and could clear a 10-foot alley through a minefield that would allow other vehicles and troops to move along behind it. This 130-ton beast was their answer. Although it was doomed never to be tested in the field, this prototype was still in the testing phase when American troops marched onto the test site in Hillersleben in 1945 and seized it. The model was never seen again, and with the war drawing to a close, no replacement was ever built. Can you guess at the purpose of this next concept car? There's a clue in the name. It was called the Survival. That's a bad play on words, but it gives away the fact that this unconventional chassis was supposed to be the ultimate safety and survival vehicle. The one-of-a-kind car began life as a 1948 Hudson, although it's been so heavily modified that it's almost impossible to see any traces of the original vehicle. While it looks like a product of the 1930s or 1940s, Survival was actually designed in 1959 by Walter C. Jerome, who believed the 2-sectioned body would minimize the impact of any collision. A working model was built and still exists today, although it's gathering rust and sadly doesn't get the chance to be driven very often. It might have been the price tag that did the most damage to the chances of the Survival catching on as an idea. At $10,000, it was double the price of a brand new Cadillac Series 62. There was only ever going to be one winner in that contest. The name Bluebird is synonymous with land speed record attempts, and also with the name Donald Campbell. Campbell lived and died for the land speed record and built a series of vehicles with the name Bluebird during the 1950s and 60s. Each one he designed to go faster than the one before. This particular vehicle, Bluebird Proteus CN7, was one of his most successful. On July 17, 1964, Campbell took the gas turbine-powered Bluebird out on Australia's Lake Eyre and pushed it to a maximum acceleration of 403.1 miles per hour, officially breaking the world record for the flying mile and securing a place in history for the vehicle builder and his marvelous machine. Sadly, Campbell's stand-in driver Peter Bolton crashed the Bluebird during a demonstration in the UK in 1966, and Campbell was killed the following year in an accident before this version of the Bluebird could be fully restored. It was eventually restored by the end of 1969, but has never run again, instead spending its days as a museum piece in England's National Motor Museum. It wasn't until the 1960s that the human race finally made it to the moon. But that didn't stop 1920s dreamers from experimenting with every piece of rocket technology they could lay their hands on. The rocket craze that swept the decade led to inventions like this one, the Solar and Interstellar Rocket Car, created by the Hungerford brothers in New York in 1929. Despite the space-referencing name of the car, it was never intended to exit the Earth's atmosphere, but it was still an incredibly ambitious vehicle for its time. The rocket car was mostly made from a stripped-down 1921 Chevy chassis, linoleum, cardboard, and a vast gas-burning rocket. Amazingly, the state of New York allowed the brothers to register their flimsy construction, which allowed them to test it on the roads. One of those tests saw it hit a top speed of 70 miles an hour, with journalists of the time noting that the sheet of flame that came out the back of the car went for 20 feet. They had high hopes of redesigning it so they could fly into the air, although they never achieved that dream. These days, you'll find the rocket car in Albany on display at the New York State Museum. Back in the 1950s, famous Porsche dealer and tuner Norman Holtkamp found himself drawn to the Uhlenhaut Mercedes Transporter, a car that was designed for the unique and straightforward purpose of transporting racing cars from track to track around Europe. Although he admired the car considerably, he couldn't help but think that he knew a way to improve on the design, so he set to work building the Cheetah Transporter with the assistance of his friend Dave Deal. As a starting point, the two friends acquired the wreck of a Mercedes 300S sedan and stripped it down to its bare bones. They added a second frame with a cantilever, a small block Chevrolet V8 engine, and a 3-speed Corvette transmission, the latter of which was adapted to power the existing swing axle from the original Mercedes. Holtkamp added some ramps to the back to allow the race cars to get on board, where they'd sit on a bed of aluminum. At the front of the Cheetah, given its distinctive appearance, was a section from a 1959 El Camino cab, including headlamps and a removable nose. Having completed the car, he began to offer to build additional models for $16,000 a time, but found no customers. That means the original, which is now in private hands, was the only model ever built. If you're a sheik in Abu Dhabi, it's likely that you'll never have to worry about your cash flow for the rest of your life. That means you can spend big on cars and vehicles if you wish to, and Sheikh Hamad bin Hamdan Al Nahyan might just lead the way when it comes to buying statement vehicles. He's the proud owner of this 10-wheeled Colossus, which is generally thought to be the largest SUV in the world. Effectively made from a Jeep and a military truck that have been fused together, he's named his impressive 24-ton custom car the Dabian. The Jeep that's been used in its construction is a regular Jeep Wrangler, but the remainder of the car is made from an Oshkosh M1075 military truck, which explains its striking appearance. Even in a place as rich as Abu Dhabi, you won't find anything else like this on the road. From nose to tail, it's 35 feet long and stands 10 feet tall, with a 15.2-liter, 6-cylinder Caterpillar engine inside to power it, providing 600 horsepower. Simply put, it's a beast. Is the Campania TRex 14R a car, a motorcycle, or a tricycle? There's no correct answer to that question, so let's just go with the one thing we can say about it for certain. It's an awesomely impressive road vehicle. The three-wheeler is capable of going from 0 to 60 miles per hour in just under 4 seconds thanks to its 5,000 RPM engine, which means in terms of speed, it's directly comparable to our most modern supercars. Built in Canada, it's registered as a motorbike by the country's Department of Transportation, but we can't think of any other motorcycles that offer you this combination of speed, style, and raw power. Getting into the vehicle feels more like boarding a racing car than getting into a standard car for your daily commute. The steering wheel has to be manually removed before you can climb into the cockpit. What it has in style, though, it lacks in substance and safety. Once you're strapped in, you'll find that you have no power brakes, no power steering, no air conditioning, and no radio. It's built for speed, not security. Our next concept car was designed with the age of the internet in mind. We know that because of its name. Somewhat cheekily, it's called the Cadillac Word Thorium Fuel Concept, or for short, the Cadillac WTF Concept. Anyone who's been on the internet for more than 5 minutes will already know what the acronym means. Behind the silly name, though, is a truly revolutionary car that looks like nothing else we've ever seen. Designed by Lauren Colossus, the most unique thing about this vehicle is its fuel supply. Rather than gas, it runs on thorium. That's a vaguely radioactive type of metal, which is also sometimes used as a source of fuel in nuclear power stations. That makes it sound somewhat unsafe, but Colossus assures us it's fine. Perhaps even more unconventionally, the wheels aren't really wheels at all. You might think you're looking at 4 wheels, but what you're actually seeing are 4 deep spherical dishes, each of which contains 6 smaller wheels powered by their own individual motors. In theory, this means the tires on the vehicle would never have to be changed. It's futuristic, but it's all scientifically plausible using technology we have available right now. You probably think that brass isn't the most efficient material to make a car out of, and you'd be right. It may not make for the most attractive vehicle design we've ever seen, but it does make for one of the most unusual. This is the appropriately named brass van, which is also sometimes known as the California Fantasy Van. People have been working on the van for more than 20 years, and it still isn't considered to be finished. Ernie Steingold, whose line of work was repairing vacuum cleaners, bought the 1975 GMC van in the 1980s and began attaching decorative brass items to it for his own amusement. His godson, Hunter Mann, is the van's current owner and has continued Ernie's work. The first pieces of brass to be added were 3 elephants that were positioned on the hood, but over time the entire body of the van has been covered in brass coins. The coins alone are worth $15,000, but taken as a complete piece and allowing for the value of all the other brass that now adorns the old van, its true worth is something closer to $350,000. Where do you imagine the world's most expensive big rig monster truck can be found? If you guessed Saudi Arabia, give yourself a pat on the back. You're totally right. This 24-cylinder Goliath was built over the course of 7 years by designer Mike Hara and attracted a price of $12 million when it went to auction. Hara named his creation Thor 24, starting out with a Peterbilt 359 crew cab semi, which he stretched out to 44 feet. That gave him enough space to fit a pair of 13.9-liter diesel V12 engines. Couple that with the 12 superchargers he attached to the blocks, and you have a truck capable of reaching 130 miles per hour. If you think the grille design looks a little old school and familiar, that's because it was inspired by the design of the Ford hot rods of the 1930s. Even with all the gadgetry and decoration, much of which is there for effect, the Thor 24 can still function just like any other big rig and has the relevant attachments to tow a trailer if required. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications and you will be the first to know when a new video comes out. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.